Hello, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Career Mode. Let's just jump right into the R&D and get ourselves a next technology, the general construction one. And at the end of the previous episode, we were lacking a lot of science points to get anything else, so I made did a few contracts and got some science paid out of it in the meantime. But today's goal is exploring the moon, an orbit around the moon, an orbital spacewalk, and then coming back to Kerbin. And on top of that, if we're able, I'm trying to do the transmit or recover scientific data from the surface of the moon. But right now, let's say we should upgrade our vehicle assembly building and our launch pad in order to build a bigger and more powerful and of course more capable rocket which can do everything I mentioned earlier, since our last rocket barely made a fly by the moon and had not really a lot of fuel left, even though I screwed it up a little. But anyways, there was not a lot of fuel left. Now, jumping into the R&D, we have already built the main part of the most of the rocket, but now just adding a few small bits and pieces like the nose cones and earlier the struts and now some ailerons. So I decided to show you some footage of me building a rocket, or in this case now just finishing it, adding a few little parts, upgrading my previous design, going over it, rethinking everything. But it's not going to be a long part, just I don't know, maybe 30 seconds. But I can now also describe the rocket a little bit. We have a central core with a gimbal liquid fuel engine surrounded by 2x3 boosters, 3 liquid fuel boosters and 3 SRBs. So SRB stands, for those who don't know, solid rocket boosters. And above that we have a transfer stage, which is supposed to go to, transfers to the moon, and then of course back with, and on top of that of course a crew module, and on top of that we have a small satellite which will lander, which I will try to land on the surface of the moon, which we can see now. Anyways, let's go and launch this thingy. And as we are now on the launch pad, of course 2x time acceleration, so that you don't have to sit through everything. Well, it wasn't too long launching it, but still I think it's more interesting to see than double the speed, or I think it's even 250%, though I'm not quite sure, since launches from Kerbin are not the most exciting thing right now. And yes, so now booster separation, or the first boosters. And at this moment I realized this thing was not very aerodynamically stable, so I decided to switch on the liquid fuel, the gimbaled liquid fuel engine. Speaking of liquid fuel engines and this not too stable ascent, I used liquid fuel boosters, which I usually don't use, but especially if we don't, or if you don't have any fuel ducts, since we haven't unlocked them yet. We have to do other things with Mark 1 parts and liquid fuel boosters. So I came up with the design in separate stages, in terms like we use first all the fuel in the boosters, and then I need the central core. But now like I said, switched on the central engine as well in order to get more stability. Now a nice triangular separation of the liquid fuel boosters, which kind of resembles the real life equivalent of the Soyuz, which also has some beautiful cross. This cross has a special name, though I can't really remember the name at this moment. Anyways, now approaching orbit, we are almost done, though we're just missing a little bit. And now after a stage separation and orbital insertion, let's jump right to the moon. Now here at the moon, I'm just tweaking our approach vector to go over the, not crash into the moon, because earlier we were crashing it into it, though you didn't see that. Long story short, we are now here next to the moon, trying to get the thing of going to an orbital spacewalk, but we weren't quite close enough, so let's go into an orbit. First a very more eccentric orbit, and now circularizing it to get it more beautiful and more circular and easy to get the probe going later on. But now first thing is to get the temperature readings of space close to the moon and the crew report, and then we're going to decouple this lander. Now EVAing, and then the carousel starts. We got the report, but then we got thrown off our lovely spacecraft because it was, well, rotating pretty fast because of unknown reasons, probably some kraken or something along those lines with its magical force. We flew around 500 meters away, so now we had to get back now with our EVA pack, and this was not really a problem since we have a lot of fuel in it. Now going to our lander first and collecting the data, which we did earlier, and now just a small screenshot with the moon and the small satellite. Now trying to get this data, I realized it kind of isn't working, even though I'm pretty close to it, so I was kind of confused. So what might be the case? Why can't we take this? So I went over and jumped into the probe to see what's wrong, and then I realized, oh, I haven't extended the antenna, and now because I have extended the antenna on the probe core, well, yeah, it has official contact and we can take off the data, even though that's kind of weird. We should be able to get the data from the instruments even though the probe itself isn't powered, but as long as it works, well, who cares. Now going back to the main ship and the overshooting 2 times, yeah, I have to kind of work on those skills a little bit. Anyways, now jumping into it, boarding, checking again for the crew reports, extending the antenna so that we have the relay antenna. That's not just a regular antenna, it's a relay antenna, so we have communication to the satellite, even though we wouldn't be facing the space the space program itself at any given time. Activating our small engine, trying to decelerate and get into a suborbital trajectory to land on the other side, well, on the bright side of the moon, in order to see something. And I already realized it here, but later on it was way more, well, it was worse. Somehow the center of mass wasn't aligned with the engine, so all the time I was burning at a, well, high percentage. The spacecraft started to turn around, and this was really annoying. And I was really thinking why I built everything symmetrically, and I think the reason is because of the antenna. I really think the antenna is the only thing that's, well, it is the only thing that's sticking out, and those few instruments. But I don't think it's coming from the instruments, so it has to be the antenna, but I don't know. Anyways, now approaching the moon and spinning out of control because it was kind of, well, whatever, it doesn't really make big sense as long as we're braking. But then I realized, yes, it wasn't enough, so the last desperate tries to save it were futile, and we crashed into the surface, so we couldn't fulfill the contract, and we lost the probe, and we couldn't get more science data. But this was only the secondary goal of our mission, so I think as long as we get Valentina Kerman back to Kerbin, the whole thing will be a success. Now, it's slightly weird with those orbital lines showing really high apophysis in orbit around the moon. Very weird. So yeah, I decided to just time warp forwards to see whether we will really stay in the sphere of influence of the moon, even though I'd have, practiced all the multiple times I did this already. It was really confusing, so I thought, yeah, this has to be already entering Kerbin's SY. Then flying back to Kerbin, slightly before entering, I decided to, yeah, let's brake, let's use up the remaining fuel we have in our stage in order to slow down and make the descent not so heated, so that we will definitely come down as well in one go and not in 2 goes, even though I planned to go 2 times through the atmosphere, but I didn't realize how much fuel we had left. Now going through this descent at ridiculous speeds, as I just realized, 4 times double that, so 8 times regular speed. That's really beautiful. those descents, especially the last kilometer after the parachutes deployed, are kind of long and tedious and boring. So now seeing everything in the modern doubles fight is pretty beautiful. I mean, it's not really a pain in the arse in sitting through this. Anyways, touchdown, and we're back. So we completed our mission and primary goal for today's video. Yay! And on top of that, we got a lot of science point out of this. 103 science points, so we have 145 science points, and we will definitely spend them just in a minute. And we advance Valentina to level 1. Now if we go to the contacts panel, messengers panel, my fault, sorry, we can see that we've explored the moon, yay. And now first milestones, and here there's a mistake. We have landed on the moon, the second from the bottom. There you go. Yeah, we didn't really land, we just crashed into the moon. Yeah, the other parts of the contract, that's why you completed them, but those are not too important. The more interesting thing is, is to get the last tier 3, I guess, technology, or tier 2, yeah, probably tier 3 technology, aviation. And now next we're going to choose one of the following technologies. Since this is space recording, I already know I'll pick the fuel system because of the fuel pipes, but first I'm just going to look through all of them. Now on this part, I would really like to thank you guys for watching this 3rd episode, and of course, until next time, Spaceship out.